Can you name a sport where the best way to win is to find loopholes in the rulebook? Where the real competition doesn't happen on race day. It happens months earlier in a workshop in an engineering bay where a team of scientists and designers are trying to outsmart a rulebook written by their competitors. Where the name of the sport itself comes from the rules because Formula One literally means the formula, the set of regulations every team must follow, and where, paradoxically, the teams that win most consistently are the ones who find legal ways to break those very regulations. I had never thought about Formula One this way before reading The Formula by Joshua Robinson and Jonathan Clegg. And now I cannot think about it any other way. The Formula is a comprehensive history of Formula One, how it began in the 1950s, how it survived scandal after scandal, and how it became one of the most watched and most commercially valuable sports on the planet. I want to be honest about where I started. I was vaguely aware of Formula One. I had not watched Drive to Survive, the Netflix documentary that introduced a whole new generation to the sport during the pandemic. I knew the broad strokes, fast cars, famous drivers, Monaco. By the time I finished this book, I understood Formula One as something far more complex, far more strategic, and far more intellectually fascinating than I had ever imagined. This is not just a book about racing, it's a book about human ingenuity, institutional politics, and the strange beauty of a competition where the engineers are often more important than the drivers. Formula One gets its name from its rulebook. The FIA, the sport's governing body, publishes what is called the formula, a set of technical regulations that every team must follow. Engine specifications, car dimensions, safety requirements, weight limits. The idea is that by standardizing the rules, every team competes on equal terms. The fastest driver wins. Except that is not how it works at all. What actually happens is that every team employs armies of the world's best engineers, aerodynamicists, and designers, not to build the fastest car within the rules, but to find the most creative interpretations of those rules that give them a competitive advantage. A wing that technically complies with the dimension regulations but creates significantly more downforce. A suspension system that technically meets the specification but behaves differently at speed in ways the rules didn't anticipate. An engine mapping that technically operates within the power limits but delivers that power in a way competitors had not considered. The teams that win most consistently are not necessarily the ones with the biggest budgets or the best drivers. They are the ones with the most creative lawyers and engineers, people who can read a rulebook and find possibilities that nobody else saw. And when the FIA closes one loophole, the teams immediately start looking for the next one. The competition is not on the track. The competition is in the interpretation of the document that governs the track. I find that extraordinary. I cannot think of another sport where this is true at this level. Formula One has endured scandals that would have destroyed almost any other sport. Crashgate, where a team deliberately crashed a car to trigger a safety car and help their other driver win. Spygate, where one team stole technical secrets from another. Corruption at the highest levels of governance. Decisions that appear to favor certain teams or drivers over others. Each time one of these scandals broke, you would expect fan trust to collapse. You would expect viewership to fall. You would expect the sport to contract. The opposite happened. Formula One's global audience has grown consistently through every scandal. The Drive to Survive documentary during the pandemic introduced millions of new fans, particularly in America, which had previously been resistant to the sport. The sport is now more commercially valuable than at any point in its history. The book's implicit argument, and I find it truly fascinating, is that scandal and controversy are not threats to Formula One. They are part of its identity. The sport has always been about pushing limits, bending rules, and operating in grey areas. Its fans understand and even appreciate that. A sport where teams spy on each other is more interesting than a sport where they don't. A sport where someone crashes deliberately to influence an outcome is more dramatic than one where nothing surprising ever happens. That is a strange thing to admit, but the numbers support it. And this brings me to perhaps the most surprising reframe in the entire book. We think of Formula One as a sport of great drivers: Schumacher, Senna, Hamilton, Verstappen, icons whose names we know even if we have never watched a race. And yes, the skill required to drive these cars at these speeds is extraordinary. The physical and mental demands are unlike almost any other sport. But the book makes a compelling case that the drivers, as extraordinary as they are not the primary determinant of who wins. The car is. A world champion driver in an inferior car will not win championships. An average driver in a dominant car might. The history of Formula One is full of examples of both. The real stars of this sport, the people whose decisions actually determine outcomes, are the engineers, the technical directors, the strategists, and the designers working in those workshops months before race day. Formula One markets itself as a sport of gladiators. It is actually a sport of scientists. And once you understand that, everything about it becomes more interesting. My one honest criticism is that the book occasionally assumes more prior knowledge of Formula One than a complete newcomer might have. Certain references to specific races, rule changes, and technical regulations are made without sufficient context for someone entirely new to the sport. I occasionally had to pause and look something up to fully understand the reference. It's a minor criticism. The writing is excellent and the overall argument is clear. But if you're coming in with zero Formula One knowledge, be prepared to do a little supplementary reading alongside. The Formula is one of the most genuinely surprising books I have read recently because it completely changed how I think about a sport I had previously ignored. I came in knowing almost nothing about Formula One. I finished understanding why it has captured the imagination of hundreds of millions of people worldwide. Because it turns out Formula One is not really about cars going fast. It's about human ingenuity pushed to its absolute limits. It's about finding creative solutions within impossible constraints. It's about the strange beauty of a competition where the rulebook is both the battlefield and the weapon. If you have watched Drive to Survive and want to go deeper, read this book. If you have never engaged with Formula One and want to understand why so many people are obsessed, read this book. And if you're simply interested in how human competition works at its most extreme, read this book. It'll change how you see the sport and possibly how you see competition itself. So tell me, are you an F1 fan? And if you are, did you get into it through Drive to Survive or were you a fan before? And if you are not a fan, does this review make you curious about the sport? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious because Formula One seems to be one of those things where once you understand it, you cannot stop watching. Subscribe if you want more honest book reviews like this one every week on Lore and Lens. I'll see you in the next one.